Chris from LaserLemming.com, and Assassin's Creed Unity is getting its first wave of reviews, and it's not looking so hot. It's not looking so hot. It's not terrible, but it's far from good. It's far from what Ubisoft promised as the great heralding of Assassin's Creed into the next gen, which is now the current gen. It's getting about 6s, 7s, maybe a little 8s across the board, but 8s not so much. It's mostly 7s, mostly in that 7 range, which is average. And it's just disappointing. It's disappointing. Now me, I've been critical of this franchise for a while now. I own at least 2 of the games in the franchise. I can't bring myself to finish either one of them. But I did think that this one looked a little interesting, at least from their initial reveal trailer where it showed the assassin and the thousands of people in the crowd. I thought that looked pretty cool. And I did look at a lot of gameplay footage and reviews of the game, and it looks beautiful. For an open world game, it looks really nice, you know? There's not that huge jump in graphics that we usually see from generation to generation, but that's really on Sony and Microsoft's fault for, you know, using cheaper hardware in order to make a higher profit, or a quicker profit. But Ubisoft has had issues with this game since they announced it. You know, they had to deal with people getting pissed off that there is no female assassins in the game, and then they had to this most recent debacle where they said that they made the game 900p on both the PS4 and the Xbox One in order to avoid any of that debates and stuff. And then they got into some trouble again by saying that, you know, 30 frames per second is the ideal for these kinds of games. And it turns out they can't even reach those 30 frames per second. Because first of all, they were full of shit. 30 frames per second is not ideal for really any game. I don't care if you're trying to get a cinematic experience. This is an open world game it's an open world action game. And you're playing a video game, you're not watching it. It works in movies. For the most part, it works in movies to have 24 frames per second. Video games, if you can hit 60, hit 60. It gives you a better input timing, so you're hitting the guys right when you press that button, or a lot closer to when you press that button than you do when you're doing it at 30 frames per second. And it just looks better. Some people can't notice the difference, but I can, and many other people can't. So they were full of shit. People called them out on it. But it turns out Assassin's Creed Unity does not hit 30 frames per second. Almost, I'm not going to go into an extreme because I haven't seen a Digital Foundry comparison of it yet. But the reviews aren't good when it comes to that frame rate. They're saying it's usually in the 20s, sometimes it's in the teens, and sometimes it's even hitting the single-digit frames per second mark. That sucks. That sucks ass. Because they went out of their way to say, you know, 30 frames per second is ideal. The reason they did not go 60 frames per second, they couldn't. They couldn't. They simply could not do it on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Thousands of NPCs in the game, and it looks a lot better. Now, the game suffers from pop-in, apparently, and bad frame rate. Now, that really hinders the enjoyment of the game. But you can tell what they were aiming for. They were aiming for great visuals. And, you know, I made a video a while back saying that maybe the PlayStation 4 version could have been 1080p. Maybe it could have, but the frame rate would have suffered even worse. Now, Ubisoft even went out on a limb recently and said something else. They said that, you know, they squeezed every ounce of hardware, every ounce of power out of the hardware for the PS4 and the Xbox One in order to make Assassin's Creed Unity. They're saying that they already maxed out the hardware of systems that aren't even, well, I guess they're a year old now. Of 1-year-old systems, they're saying they maxed it out. And for any other developer, if they said that, almost any other developer, I would believe them. Because, you know, they would try. But Ubisoft, especially with these Assassin's Creed games, and particularly the PC version, they seem to be pretty terrible at optimizing their games for the hardware. So I think another competent developer could make much better use of the power of these two systems. Not saying that these systems are not going to be maxed out early on, because they are. It's PC hardware, essentially. It's cheaper PC hardware put into a box that you set under your television. So this technology has been used for a long time. In technical terms, it's been used for a long time. And it's ancient, and I don't want to say ancient, but it's old. It's old technology when it comes to the tech world, because the tech world is advancing so fast. But I digress. Ubisoft kind of screwed the pooch here. I read some other things that I really didn't like. If you've been watching my videos, I've been on a real kick about microtransactions and DLC. And apparently Assassin's Creed Unity suffers quite a bit from this as well. There's some treasure chests in the game that either require you to have Ubisoft's companion app that you use on your smartphone or tablet in order to unlock, whatever bullshit monetary item that is in the game, or they encourage you to spend real money to boost your way through the game, pretty much. It's the same kind of model you see in freemium games. It fucking sucks ass. I hate that shit. If I saw that in a game, it would turn me off completely. Especially a game I paid $60 for. But that's my thoughts, opinions, and observations about this game without having actually played it. Just watching and reading impressions from other people. What are your thoughts and impressions? Have you played it? Do you want to play it? What do you think? Do you think that Ubisoft made the right decision? Do you think that it's going to be a good game despite its flaws? Let me know. Comment section below. Subscribe for more if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.